Welcome back to the Skin Talk Tuesday podcast. Hi, Nick.
Hi.
Today is a historic day for Skin Talk Tuesday because we have our first repeat guest, Diana. Welcome, or welcome
Thank
back, I
you.
should say.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm
Well
so excited to be
deserved
back.
I mean, it just makes sense to have you back. Diana Orchant is a functional registered dietitian and founder of Do Nutrition. I work with her personally. We recommend a lot of our team to work with her. Nick works with her. Like, seriously, it's the most synergetic thing to happen to PT, I think.
I love it. It's been incredibly helpful for our clients as well. I think we
think about
send
it all the time.
No, same.
Yeah.
Like, I feel so lucky that like in some way, like we really did come together. So you were on maybe it was like almost a year ago, I think,
Yeah, at
right?
least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were our first guest to record in studio, and now you're our first repeat guest. Like this just like I'm saying, it seriously makes sense to have you here. And I remember, so I listened to our last recording to really prepare for this, to, figure out like what we talked about, what we didn't, because I knew there were so many things that we really just scratched the surface on. And I can't wait to just dive even deeper. Like I ended that episode being like, we got to do a part 2. So here we are doing the part 2. If you haven't listened to that episode, like please do that before or after, I suppose, listening to this one, because there's just like such a wealth of knowledge between the two. So thank you so much for being back. We're gonna dive even deeper. But how are you?
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me back. I'm so happy to be here. I agree with you though. That was a great like high level foundations, and this is going to go a step deeper, which is going to be great.
It's also funny too because in our last episode, we really had our first like PT's first viral skincare video. You know, the
spironolactone one.
I sent it to you. The spironolactone one. Right now, it has like upwards of like 700,000 views on TikTok, which is kind of crazy.
Controversial subject. Everybody's got an opinion.
It just
Yeah,
every
hot topic.
time I look, there's just more comments, like more conversation, which I guess like that's how TikTok works. Is like the more comments, the more views, like that kind of thing.
My
But
favorite comment, someone wrote, I am naming my first child after spironolactone. You will, someone else was like, you'll, rip it from my
like cold dead hands. Yeah, no,
And I'm like,
totally.
whoa.
What is like your, not like rebuttal, but after you see like all those comments and engagement, like what do you guys think as the professionals? Like after our conversation with like the downsides of spironolactone, and then of course the conversation in the comments, like what is your POV?
So for me, and I feel like it's happening, like the longer I'm on social media, the more I realize that if you're in a profession like ours, or this is anybody actually, you just can't be in the business to convert. I think that the people that are supposed to align with the way that you work come to you, and people with strong opinions that either don't believe in the way that you work or want to do something completely opposite. There's room in this world for everybody, so to speak. But I will say, in a very obnoxious old person way, I do kind of smile to myself because I do know that 53-year-old Nicola feels very differently about medication than young Nicola when I was being put on everything under the sun. And sometimes I think when you have an opinion in your mid-20s or your mid-30s, your body changes rapidly as you get older, and some of these things that have major side effects that you're not feeling when you're young, you really do start to feel when you're older. And that's where I do actually feel a little sad. Like there are some people where I'm like, okay, I'm okay that you are so passionate about this, but do some research and education on what it's doing to your body too,
Yes. And I completely agree with you. And it's so interesting to hear, like, it's not about, for some people, it's immediate side effects. For some, it's years and years. And that's more what you're alluding to. And everything that has a positive often has a negative. Like if you're noticing, the upside of a medication, there's probably a downside. But for some, that upside is so worth it, or they don't even notice that downside, and great. What works for you works for you. And I totally agree. Like we are not in the business of converting. When somebody's like, you have to see my husband, you have to see my friend, I'm like, let them come to me. Because it's a total, you have to be committed. And so, if you are loving whatever is working for you, whether it's working for your skin or your gut or whatever, like fantastic. It's when something is broken and not working.
Oh my gosh. It's so interesting that you say that, because I feel a lot I feel that way about Pacific Touch in a lot of ways, especially
Mhm.
with just like, with my friends. Like I know a lot of people like ask me in my personal life about, skincare and like what should I do and like X, Y, and Z. And I really don't push any. I mean, I should be like, I mean, I obviously am PT's biggest advocate, but I think that just in the way that we do things, it really is something that somebody has to come to on
Yeah.
their own, Like we always say that like you feel immediately after
Mhm.
somebody leaves the treatment room and they're like ready to go. And then you also feel like if somebody's not and they just like wanted a nice facial or whatever, like you can feel that energy as well. And
Yes.
we're not in
Yes.
the business of converting people, which is to your point.
Yes.
I totally feel that.
Totally. And we can help you shift your mindset. We can help you get there, but we
Right.
can't be that one force that gets you to completely change your mind about everything you're doing.
Yeah.
So yes, and that goes, tracing that back to spironolactone, for some people, it's fabulous. For some people, then they get it later in life and they want to get pregnant or,
Yeah. Mhm.
do something else that alters their hormones and then it
Mhm.
doesn't work for them. And so
No, totally.
whatever it may be, like once you get to that crux, maybe that's where we
Yeah.
You know
dive
what
in.
I'm really proud of though, Diana, is that you put out really good information. Like when I watch the spironolactone episode, I'm not seeing you saying you need to do XYZ. You're just sharing information about what can possibly happen. And I think that doesn't happen enough in the wellness industry /
Yeah.
medical industry. Well, I just know from the clients that come to us is people will be experiencing symptoms of certain things. And I will ask them, were you told that this possibly could happen? And the answer invariably is no. So I think there's nothing wrong with having discussions where you
Mhm.
just talk about what
Right.
something is in depth,
Yeah. It's kind of
Right.
like going one step deeper, I
Yeah.
think, just like really asking like, okay, then like to every great thing, to your point, there's also like some side effects or something that is not so good that you might have to really consider. And sometimes when we see it as such a good thing and it's going to like mask everything and like solve all my problems, like it's especially when you're in it with acne specifically, it's so easy to be like, yes, sign me up. Like I literally
Yeah.
don't care. Like side
Mhm.
effects who? Like none,
Yes, yes. It's so fascinating because I feel I would say in wellness, but truly in like social media in general, what
Mhm.
gets views and likes is polarizing.
Mm.
Oh my
Right? You
gosh.
have to really
True.
be on one side of the spectrum. And so I feel like that's why we see that a lot. And
Yeah.
time.
that's not true to our core and we'll never be that way.
Yeah. It's so true.
And you guys aren't either.
I know. I
When
know.
it's funny, it's when we think about what we do, I would say a common theme for your business and my business is that we're helping people to get into harmony more than,
Mhm.
polarizing is
Yes.
not what we're
Meeting people where they're
about.
at too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a good point. Like we're in the business of
Harmony.
balance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not like wanting to be so one way or so the other. It's so true. Well, on our last episode, we ended and like I said, we could go even deeper on so many topics, but one in particular was hormonal acne. And we actually
Mhm.
just did an episode, Nick and I, on this, but I think even in our episode, there are so many things where you're like, I don't even want to go there with some things because we really need a professional. So I think that we need to, I guess, like set the record straight a little bit more on hormonal acne because I think there is a lot of misconception and we did talk about it a lot on our podcast. But now that you're here, I feel like we can go dive even deeper, which that should just honestly be
Yes.
the name of today's episode. We've
The
said it like
deep
10
dive.
times already. So in your practice, you do work a lot of people, and I'm assuming not everybody is like acne, like wanting to clear their acne with you, right? Like it's kind of like all different kinds of maybe conditions.
It is totally all
Really?
different kinds of conditions.
Okay.
Yes, but
Yeah.
acne is a huge one because that's, the skin is a mirror of what's happening internally.
Right.
Mm.
No, totally.
Yeah.
So then I'm sure like so many other things can manifest from those internal issues.
Yes.
So when it comes to hormonal acne specifically, what types of result do you see with using the Dutch test that cause acne? Because I know that in your practice, you use the Dutch test, and we said this on the other episode, but the Dutch test to figure out hormones or like where you're at, really get like a snapshot. So when it comes to your acne client specifically, what kind of results do you see and what hormones are really at play there?
Yeah. So what's interesting and why I love the Dutch test is it doesn't just look at like androgens, or in this case, an easy way to understand androgens are male dominant hormones, right? Like testosterone, DHT. We typically expect, oh, those are just going to be elevated in anyone with hormonal acne. But the truth is, it's usually an imbalance of hormones in general. And sometimes there's hormones that are too low. Maybe estrogen's dipping too low at certain times of your cycle. Maybe progesterone is. And these are all things we're seeing, right? We are seeing elevated androgens for sure, but not as much as we expect, right? We see so many cases of intense hormonal acne, and we know it's hormonal, but the root is much deeper. With that being said, so we see low progesterone, we see fluctuating estrogen, we definitely still see high androgens, and we see high cortisol, which that stress nervous system connection is huge and plays right into those sex hormones.
Yeah. So a lot of people, I also think, say that, and I think even on social media, it's so hard because they're like hormonal acne. Like I just see hormonal acne on the skin, and that's kind of what it is. And even just my point in general of like hormonal acne is like all anybody really goes to when it comes to their skin. But what does the gut have to do with it, especially when people are told that their acne is hormonal?
The gut is responsible for so much in the body. I think of it as like the core versus I think of hormones, as we were talking about earlier, like the tip of this iceberg. So it's what you see. But what's actually happening is that the gut plays such a huge role in hormonal imbalances, in inflammation, and in nutrient absorption. And so if you have a hormonal imbalance, of course, there could be a hereditary component, right? A lot of PCOS sometimes has a hereditary component, especially if you were diagnosed when you were much younger. That's a good example, but so much of it is much deeper. So when we see the results on the Dutch test, and it's usually why we don't even run to that test right away, we're still left with why is this happening in the first place? And so much of that is correlated with the gut. And so a great example is if you're not detoxifying estrogen in the body, or if you're not getting rid of excess hormones through sweating, having daily bowel movements, urinating, right, drinking enough water, then you can't properly detoxify hormones. And sometimes it's just an issue of detoxifying and less of an issue of actually these hormones are just elevated and, you have to take a drug to bring them down or whatever it may be. So yes, we're constantly looking a little bit deeper, and the hormones are just kind of what you see.
Right. Yeah.
As a professional, does it, because one of my pet peeves with hormonal acne is I feel like it's an empty throwaway comment. Like when a client comes into me and says, oh, I was told I have hormonal acne and that I should just go on the birth control pill. It's when someone's told they have hormonal acne, but you don't dive into what exactly are you talking about. Is it elevated androgens? Is it an estrogen issue? Is it cortisol? It's almost like, why do you feel like the general public are not encouraged to look deeper? Like, why do doctors just say, go on birth control or go on Spiro,
Yeah, and it's a great question. It's because it's not A plus B equals C.
Yeah.
There's no formulaic way to do this. The same way that when you have a client come in, you're not like putting everybody on these same routines, right? You're looking at the person individually. And so for us too, we are a detective looking at each individual, constantly thinking of why these things could be happening. So I look at it as like this diagram of a person and then all these millions of different inputs. And we are getting to know the individual and asking them so many questions and then putting that together with internal testing to try to figure out what's going on. And so it's just like one big puzzle, and there's always multiple pieces of that puzzle. It's never just hormones, right? It's never even just gut. There's so many different components there. We try to start with the biggest piece of the puzzle because that unlocks so much for us, but we're looking at each person individually and what all those different triggers would be. Which is why we don't even work with couples together or groups together, because everyone is so different.
Right. It has to be one-on-one.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, okay. So let's say somebody comes in with their hormonal test, Dutch test specifically, and you see these different markers and maybe can call out a few things. What are, like, for the most part, the things that you are calling out that you're like, oh, that could relate to your skin? And then how do you fix it, I guess? Like, and I know it's hard because like you don't want to have the quick fix because that's like the opposite of what we're talking about. But then it's like, okay, then what do we do? Like, how do we, I know supplementation is obviously huge, which we'll totally get into, but like, is that the immediate where you go to afterwards of seeing the results?
Yes. So when we see, or when someone comes in, let's say, and they, they're certain that it's a hormonal acne, right? Immediately we think, okay, let's go a step deeper. So let's dive in right to the main root causes of acne, right?
Mhm.
So we think about nutrient imbalances. Are you low in omega-3s, B vitamins, zinc, vitamin A, right? Are you having reactions to certain foods that you're eating, which usually means that there's a gut imbalance, but that's still happening on the surface. So it takes us a step deeper. Are there gut issues, right? We talk about bowel habits. We talk about if you're bloated, gassy, having reflux, burping all the time. Are you properly eliminating? We talk about detoxification. Are you actually getting rid of things in your body? Are you sweating at least once a week? Whether
What on the subject of sweating, because I
Yeah.
get this a lot,
Yeah.
people will actually say they don't sweat.
Yeah.
Is that an
No, and it's
issue?
do people say I don't sweat, like even when I do a workout class, I'm just not a sweater?
Yeah.
Or okay, that's what you mean. Not that they're not working out and not
No.
sweating. Or I would encourage them to go to a sauna,
Yeah.
get in hot weather, do whatever it takes to sweat.
To bring
Some
it on?
people just don't sweat when they work out, and it just means that their threshold is much higher. They can't
Yeah.
sweat. They just have to work. I'm one of those people, so I
Okay.
And that's,
totally
is
get
that
it.
like biological? Like really?
Yeah,
like just
totally. Like there
okay.
are people that just sweat a ton, no matter, like they just walk into a room and they start sweating, right? And then you have people that literally don't. It takes them a long time. They're not just going to sweat in the average workout class. So I just encourage them to figure out what that may be that gets you to sweat, and it might be going
And
into
the
a sauna.
benefit of that is like getting your sweat pathways, like your sweat moving, is helping bring everything out.
Yes,
So that's
getting rid, like the only way that we can get rid of waste and detoxify our body
Yeah.
is to have daily bowel movements, like urinate, aka drink water so that you do pee, and then sweat.
Nick, how does that make you feel? Because I know you're always harping on us with our sweaty workouts.
So
And I'm not saying you need to do it all the
doesn't-
time.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make me, I'm not anti-sweat. I'm anti the habits that come with heavy sweaters.
Yeah, totally.
And only because that was actually my last full flare up of acne in my early 30s. I was doing hot yoga and I was obsessed. I used to do 2 classes a day and sit and so this was Nicola's like in a different
Talk about
Yeah. Oh no, I
extremes.
get
but I
it.
was also like, I cleaned the studio for classes. So I would just sit and sweat and clean the studio and, using the towels at the gym, and had the most ferocious acne at the same time as being probably the healthiest I was ever in my life. And I realized it was because I got so comfortable with it. I didn't mind sitting around in the sweat, not realizing as an acne prone person, you need to get it off your skin as soon as you possibly can. And you also need to be using skincare that is nice and gentle, given that you're putting your body through so much.
And you probably were so dehydrated and depleted.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. But it definitely does when clients come in that have that lifestyle. I do know that there's going to be, it's problematic in the sense that it's a little harder, Yeah.
Totally. If you're
Yeah.
doing like a hot yoga class every single morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we think about those root causes, right? And so let's say, right, I kind of went through the things we might find on a Dutch test: low progesterone, high androgens, fluctuating estrogen throughout the cycle. And so, yes, you can take DIM if you have high estrogen. I'm not saying anyone should do that without testing. You can take, you can drink lots of spearmint tea if you have high androgens, or do white peony and licorice and things like that, right? We can use these herbs, but those herbs are kind of acting like, you could say, a medication would, right? Like they're just lowering. So I love herbs. I love supplements. I think they're fabulous because they help us reach a therapeutic level.
Yeah.
But we have to figure out what's going on in the first place.
Yeah.
And so for us, that's where we do a lot more testing, but we also change individuals' diets. We work on their lifestyle. We try to bring down stress. We look at the person holistically. And so we're never really starting with those hormone testing. Don't get me wrong. I love when people come in with all this testing. It's amazing just to have this information, but I'm going to ignore it all in the first session and just get to know the person and figure out what's going on with them.
Right. Yeah. When people do come to you and they do that first session and you get to know their diets and things like that, like, What is the kind of diets that you really see? Because I think a lot of people in PT, we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
We just had Elizabeth on the podcast, and she is a prime example of somebody who like eats super clean, like 90-10, I guess, in terms of like the balance scale. Like, is that kind of what you see in your practice as well? Or are people like,
Yeah, I get a
all over
lot
the
of,
place?
it's so healthy. It makes
Mhm.
no sense. And then we dive in and it's not like I'm sitting there correcting people that are just eating fast food and pizza all day. And,
Mhm.
it's an obvious fix. It's usually that people are just not eating practically for their lifestyle. Maybe they have a really high-paced job and they are, working out first thing in the morning and they're really stressed and they're running around. And then you live in New York City where there's sirens blaring and your nervous system's on overdrive and
Mhm.
you're not having breakfast until you even get to the office. And that's 4 hours
Right.
after
Yeah,
you
yeah.
woke up.
Right.
But what you're having is fabulous. It's adjusting when you're
Uh-huh.
having it. Or you're
Right.
not. We see a lot of under eating, which actually
Sure. Let's
holds
talk
on to
about it.
fat,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
causes inflammation and
Totally.
causes blood sugar imbalances.
Uh-huh.
But we are focused primarily on balancing blood sugar. That is just a
Mhm.
huge regulator of the body and of our hormonal system in
Mhm.
general. And so figuring out what that may be, it might be adding in a higher protein breakfast. It might be doing a little less protein and actually focusing on fiber. It's
Mhm.
so specific, but
Fiber.
we do focus heavily on getting enough protein, getting enough fiber, making sure you're eating enough and
Uh-huh.
frequently enough and that those meals are balanced and that,
Healthy
Yeah.
fats too.
Yes.
People
Totally.
are not thinking about putting enough fat
Uh-huh.
in their diet.
Yeah.
and it's the fact is today it's really hard with the farming practices in America. I mean, that could be a whole nother podcast, but
Yeah.
it's hard sometimes to get the nutrients we need. So that's where testing pairs in
Yeah.
really well because
Right.
even if you're eating, tons and tons of wonderful orange vegetables and fatty fish and you still might not be getting like enough vitamin A or zinc
Yeah.
and that's what's, causing an
Uh-huh.
imbalance and that's where supplementation can be really helpful.
Another thing that I see a lot in the treatment room is people tend to also eat the same things
Yes.
over and over, and they'll be healthy things, but they're not getting enough variety, or they may be eating too much of something and
Mhm.
almost getting a sensitivity because they're just overeating
Yeah.
that one.
Peanut butter.
Yeah,
Almond butter.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's like that's for me.
Totally.
So it's like those little habits, and then that when you look at why that's happening, it goes back to what you were saying about lifestyle, chaos, stress, hectic
Mhm.
schedules. We just want to do what's
Right.
fast
We want to like
and
take out the
easy.
decisions. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
'cause
You
you get
really do just want to
fatigued.
like do whatever's like the easiest. But then
Yeah.
if that's your habit is to
Mm.
like, yes, you might have that healthy breakfast, but you're not having it like until, you went to your workout class, got ready, took the train, and then 4 hours later you're like at the office, like eating
Mhm.
while you're working.
Yes,
It's just
totally.
like, oh
But you
yeah,
know what's
maybe if
under all of that? Stress.
oh my,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
Which is
It's the
and
underlier.
it's like we know it, we live with it, we
Mhm.
almost normalize it, and we're walking around with it literally on our faces, but we're
Especially here.
not wanting to do what we need to do to fix the real problem, which
Telling
is the
someone
stress.
that cortisol is elevated and or if we don't even do testing but I can just tell that there's a stress component is probably one of the worst things I can tell a client because they know it,
Yeah.
they internalize it and they're like, okay, but this is my life. This is a huge overhaul.
Right.
What am
What
I
do you
gonna
say to that though?
What I say is let's figure out what we can control, right?
Okay.
Obviously, if it's not always something you control. Maybe you're in this job and it's something that you've needed to get out of for a long time and it's causing a lot of stress.
Right. But it's just
We
like
can-
that's what we need to do.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
but maybe that's something that we can control. We talk
Mhm.
about what we can and what we can't control.
Mm.
And some of the stress we have, we can control. We don't necessarily need to be going to a HIIT class every single morning.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
elevating our cortisol and keeping it high before we even start our day. Right? We don't necessarily, but we can get out of a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Totally.
can't. I mean, who knows, right? So
Yeah.
it's figuring out like what those stressors are and what can be changed and then figuring out, okay, now how do we manage the stressors that can't be changed?
Totally. Yeah. Wow. You really do look at the person as a whole. Like it's back to what you were saying earlier, but it's crazy of like, yeah, there's so many things, not just even in the immediate, like when I'm asking you on the, with the hormone pathways and like what you see in the test. And then I'm like, in my experience thinking like there's a supplement for that. Like, so you know what I mean? Like somewhere
Totally.
in there.
I
And
always
then
say we can't out supplement a poor diet.
totally.
So we
yeah.
start with food 1st
Mhm.
always. And we are major supplement fans at DO Nutrition, major,
Yeah.
like, because they're so helpful. But we certainly, it's our natural inclination to be like, okay, what supplement can I take for that? Just
Right.
like, what pill
Yeah.
can I take for that, just to
Oh my
balance
gosh.
it out? And
Totally.
we can play that game, but we don't like to.
Yeah, totally. Back to what you were saying earlier with like I know you said that you see a lot of people under eating, or like need more fiber or whatever. Like, especially as a registered dietitian, like how do you know when you're like under eating versus like overeating? Because I think that that's like where a lot of people like get tripped up because they think like, especially women, I think that we need to like under eat, I guess. Like that's just like our society, I suppose. Especially now with like everybody being like skinny being back in, I suppose.
Yes.
Like how, in your professional opinion, like how do you go about that, or what are your recommendations?
Yeah. So I think what comes to mind for most people in the field, or just even individuals who are like doing their own research and coming to us, is calorie counting. We don't love to do it. We're happy to support you if that's something you want to do. And we can, we understand that in depthly, but we actually try to make it so that it is an intuitive practice, meaning that you should know if you're getting enough, but a lot of people don't know because they don't realize that afternoon slump is tied to a snack that they should be having, or they don't realize how they feel. So the first thing we do is get you on a regimen that actually feels good for your body. And it's some trial and error at the beginning,
Of course,
right?
yeah.
And then when people come in and we're tracking, okay, you came in with low energy, you came in with this, you came in with that, are any of those things improving? And once they are, we realize, okay, that's actually a huge tribute to your diet, right? And getting more sleep. And right, we're looking at all these things, because if you're not sleeping, you have no idea how to eat or what to eat, and you're just gonna eat all day, right? Or you might not eat at all. It totally depends on your stress response. But we actually just really try to work with the person individually. We can set macro goals for you if that's something that you want, because some people are really numbers driven.
Right. Yeah.
Casey, Zeba, and I are not. So we will not ever tell you.
You guys are very like intuitive. Yeah.
We really are. And we can feel that with our clients. So we are very much focused on what kind of makes individuals' bodies tick. And I know that's not like the most scientific, perfect answer that everyone wants to hear, because they can't just go home and do it.
Right.
But we're looking at how your body is
Practically,
responding.
though, that is so much better for people if you're able to tailor it to what drives, like what drives me, it will be different from Mary. And so if you're able to sort of like teach people to intuitively, you know what, actually just thinking about what you're saying, reconnecting with your mind, with your body.
Yes.
Teaching people to listen, that's, for us, it's teaching people to listen to their skin. The bigger picture, that you are driving is listen to your body and the messages that your body is sending. Like that little checklist that you were just saying about, feel like what feeling fatigued, feeling low energy at 3:00, rather than just reaching for the coffee, actually paying attention, like, oh, I feel like this. Or I had a client, I have a lot of clients who get hangry, and but are not connecting it to a blood sugar dysregulation.
Totally. And the way I like to think about it is like, we're going to be thrown hurdles. Like we're going to have to deal with so many different hurdles throughout our lives, right?
Yep.
And so a really simple way to look at that is like, you have a wedding. It's your best friend's wedding. You want to eat and drink whatever you want. If your body's goal, because this is just how your body gets, like, you have this kind of like set point, is to get back to homeostasis and find balance, then you can do and eat and live however you want at that wedding. And then the next day, you're not going to have to like overcompensate and restrict and, go on some detox diet. Your body is naturally actually just going to crave that stability the next day. And I noticed that in children too. And that is like the most, I think I notice in a hospital, like we treat in the NICU, every single thing is taken into account for a newborn, right?
Yeah.
All these external factors and internal factors. And so I notice that with children too, like toddlers, if their bodies actually are regulating their appetite, their fullness, their wanting some savory when they have sweet. Like that's just a natural drive that we have totally ignored. You could blame multiple factors, stress, our food system, et cetera, right? That because certain foods are just now designed to be extremely addicting and you can overeat them, right? But if we can connect with that innate drive to find that homeostasis, it solves a lot of problems.
Literally mic drop. Connect to that innate drive to homeostasis. Like
Yeah.
put that on a pillow, you
Yeah.
know? Like seriously.
Which is really a very fancy way of talking about what you just said about balance.
Yeah.
Everything is about balance,
Uh-huh.
you know, which
Nobody wants to hear it, but it
Nobody
is
wants
I
to
was
hear
going to
it.
say spoiler
Yeah,
alert.
it's hard.
Uh-huh.
It's not
This
easy.
Yeah.
has been going on for decades.
I know.
Balance is key.
It's so true.
Mm.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about supplements, and I know that you said you use a lot of herbal supplements and
Mhm.
things like that. There's also a lot of supplements that trigger acne, one including biotin and things like Nutrafol. I think we can say that, right? On this podcast. Like, I think we can call them out. Like, I know that you always maybe like don't recommend Nutrafol or whatever, but I would love to get
Yeah.
like your take on those kinds of things. Like, you know, the skin health or no, the hair skin kind of supplements that are, you know, have been around for a while or whatever. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of hair issues are actually internal imbalances of lack of protein,
Mhm.
low iron, poor nutrient status, B vitamins,
Mhm.
which biotin falls into that. This usually
Wait, biotin's a B vitamin?
Biotin is a B vitamin.
Okay.
It doesn't use, and I agree that B vitamins are key for hair, skin,
Mhm.
nails, all of it. But
Root.
usually it's not a biotin issue.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Meaning people just take biotin to grow their hair and nails. That's not, and that's what's in these really high amounts in a lot of these products. And that's not usually the issue. If someone comes in with like thinning hair, I'm not being like, oh, biotin, that's what they need.
Yeah,
Right. We're
right.
looking at what they're eating, right? Stress. If you
Stress
had a
stress.
you know, a terrible stressor in your life, perhaps let's say like a death in the family, you might notice hair loss 6 months later. But that's besides the point. But just saying that you might see that stressor later, and so we're looking at those factors, right? But
Yeah.
yes, biotin's a huge acne trigger, as is
But
excess
it's-
B12. But it's finding
the excessive amount.
it's the excessive
though, right?
amount,
'Cause I
and
feel
that's
like
what's happening.
Yeah, that's not talked about enough, is that it's not biotin per se or even B12. It's excessive amounts if you're not deficient.
Yes.
And when you look at like Nutrafol or different supplements, multivitamins do this all the time with B12. You'll flip it and look at the daily recommended dosage, and it'll be like 5,000%.
Yes.
And you're like, oh my God, no wonder people are.
I'm just taking this multi.
But if your doctor or if you tell a client, like if you do testing and a person is deficient in B12, of course they should take B12, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
But we go slow with the amount.
Yeah.
And we'll
Okay.
retest. Like if somebody has a lot of acne and they are low in B12, because that is a big one, we are going to go really slow.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting.
And actually try to get food sources first before we start like supplementing.
Right. Yeah. Because with B12 specifically, I know that it's not even like in our practices, but like online, a lot of acne influencers say like B12, like too much or like having that will cause acne or whatever. It's a very like blanket statement, but I actually had low levels of B12 and then got put on a B12 like supplement, which I just like, it goes back to our point of like, you know, testing without guessing, like figure out like where you're at with your levels, because it's like, you know, you might have too much of it or not enough and like need to be put on it. So it's just like really interesting. Are there other supplements that do trigger acne that you're always like a little bit cautious of?
Biotin and B12 are the biggest ones I see. Nothing else that like specifically comes to mind. Are there ones that you guys are seeing?
I think that I remember from my acne courses that we were always cautioned about algae, like high iodine.
Iodine,
Yeah, but all of these things, even biotin, I mean, my understanding,
That's a good
correct me
point.
if I'm wrong, but that it's actually very easy to get biotin in your diet, and that the reason why we get excessive amounts with supplementation, we don't need it
Yeah, I agree.
because you can get it from food, you know?
And it's
The
not going to trigger
algae
acne from
thing,
food
I'm
at all.
always like a little bit, I mean, that this is what I've learned, that I got taught in my acne classes, that, high iodine levels can trigger irritation in the follicle when the body is getting rid of it, and that can cause breakouts. And because I think the important thing too is to that you don't hear in the little sound bites that when people put out things, is it's in some people, not all.
Yes.
Like we're not all going to be, aggravated by high levels of XYZ. It's just in some people, and it's information that you know, can sometimes need to know. But then with the iodine thing, I'm always like, I don't understand how that works if, say, in Asian culture with high levels of iodine in the food, like seaweed and all of that sort of thing, and they certainly don't have skin issues. So I think there is nuance
Mhm.
to it, you know?
Yeah.
Totally.
No, I totally agree. If we have someone come to us that, acne is just not an issue at all, I would never hesitate to put them on B12 and
Okay.
like it wouldn't concern me at all. That being said, if we've done that and somebody says like, I just got my first pimple in years, then that's the first thing I'm gonna think of.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm very, very cautious with our acne prone clients in terms of
Uh-huh.
what supplementation we're using. But if you're not, I'm a little less worried.
Uh-huh.
I think too, the other thing that I see often in practice is that there can be a purging because of detoxification that will calm down. Like
Yes.
that happens with chlorophyll drops, which I love.
Yes.
Like when you first go on it, you'll break out for a couple of weeks
Mm.
just while the body is readjusting. And part of it is the detoxification that it prompts, which is a good thing. You know, like we're always trying to teach clients purging is not bad. Purging is moving the debris out, and it is a good thing. And I'm sure that probably happens in your practice as well. Just
Mhm.
when you're putting people through protocols, there may be an uptick in
Yes.
symptoms.
Yes. But what we find is that there is an uptick, but then they're starting to see improvement
Yeah.
quick enough after that you're like, okay, well, that was just a detox
Right.
reaction for sure.
Right. It
Yeah.
kind of like explains itself.
Yes.
That's actually a good segue into something else that I want to talk to you about is liver detoxification. Because I think when it comes to acne care and acne treatment, that's a piece that's missing. I think
Yeah.
we really do focus on of course, the hormonal acne, which is what we talked about earlier, but also the gut health and everything like that, those two things. But I think liver detoxification, I know, works in that as well. So for you in your practice, what are the best ways to support our detoxification pathways?
Yes. So not to beat a dead horse, but peeing, pooping, and sweating,
Dang.
right? That's how you
So
truly
glamorous.
detoxify. But then we also want to think about how we can support our detox organs,
Mhm.
right? So how can we really essentially support the liver? And, there's a lot of people out there that are like, well, it's the liver's job, right? It's the dishwasher's job to clean our dishes. It's the, washing machine's job to clean our clothes. But we should actually be cleaning those at least once or twice a year, right? Because they
I
can.
was just gonna say
Well,
they
yeah.
can get gross too.
So we might do some testing, but also we
Okay.
can kind of tell, right? If you're someone who's
okay.
like super, super sensitive
Uh-huh.
to fragrances, or you get headaches when you walk past kind of a fragrance,
Uh-huh.
it's a sign that we could use some support. That's kind of one of the questions we'll ask.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But also just symptoms in general, right? If you're super fatigued all day,
Uh-huh.
that could be a blood sugar imbalance. That could also be, you need some detoxification. But regardless, some of the things that we will really look towards to help support liver health
Mhm.
would be adequate protein intake, B vitamins. You hear these themes.
Mhm.
And then also potentially, if we're seeing testing that indicates that there
Mhm.
could, some liver support could be needed,
Okay.
we might look into the amino acid N-acetylcysteine. We might look into
What's that?
glutathione, which is our body's major antioxidant.
Okay.
And N-acetylcysteine is the precursor to glutathione, and that's where that supplement can be really helpful. Some people even think glutathione or N-acetylcysteine really is helpful for acne because it supports detoxification.
Uh-huh.
And we might look into like zinc, selenium.
Okay. What are some of the key markers for the testing that you were talking about?
Yeah, so we always want to run blood testing, and we'll look at liver markers. So
Okay.
ALT and AST,
Okay.
which most of our clients, unless they come to us with fatty liver disease, right, or some sort of liver imbalance, will be normal, but we have more of an optimal optimal threshold where we like to see those numbers to show
I
that things
see.
are really functioning optimally.
Okay.
So looking at that, looking at the Dutch test, because that helps us see how well you're detoxifying your hormones, or if there's kind of like a backup there.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then we know that so much is processed through the liver. If you have high cholesterol is processed through the liver. So sometimes we just need to support that
Okay.
liver to get
Yeah.
cholesterol moving and
Uh-huh.
kind of getting out of the body.
Okay, that's really interesting. Well, another more popular way, I guess, to detox is colonics and enemas. And this is actually a personal question I had for you because it was funny. I like wanted to text you this question, and then I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna bank this for our next, podcast recording. So can we kind of like, I guess, set the record straight, I suppose, and like answer the question of, are colonics even good for digestion? Is it something that like people, especially acne prone people, should consider?
Yeah, I love to think if somebody says like, I want to get a colonic, my first question is why?
Right.
I'm not anti-colonics. I'm not
Mhm.
anti-enemas. I'm more like, why are you considering it? Are you
Okay.
feeling backed up? Are you feeling bloated? My first thought would be, let's dive into your diet and lifestyle and let's maybe do a stool test to
Okay.
see, what's going on, right?
Yeah.
If you're constipated, why? If you're feeling bloated, why? And so like, I have no problem if someone's like, I want to get a colonic, by all means, but you likely will just keep needing them unless you figure out why you wanted that one in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you run into that sort of trouble when you sometimes rely on things too much, right? That starts to take over and your body
Yeah.
isn't doing what it needs
I
to
just
do.
feel like,
Yes.
I don't know, I guess much about them, unless they've been doing colonics for thousands and thousands of years. I'm just like, well, like, is it really something that our body needs? Like, do we all really need to be doing, you know what I mean? Like, I think that our body like knows what to do, and like we should, and if we want to be in that homeostasis state, which is what we've been talking about, like our body should know like when to do the liver detox or any kind of detox, I suppose. And like having to do like a colonic, I guess,
Yeah.
would like counteract that, I suppose.
My immediate
yeah.
thought would be like making sure if you were to do like I'm not against the idea. In fact, to be honest, I wouldn't say no to an offer to go and have a colonic
Totally agree.
for the experience
Yeah,
of,
same.
but my immediate thought would be, how do I replenish what is taken out of the body? Because it's almost like if you're forcing the movement, my assumption would be a lot of good stuff may come out as well. And how do you bring everything back into balance, right? Because
Yes.
you're literally taking a power hose
Right.
and cleaning everything down, but our body is not, there's good bacteria and different things that we want to be still there.
Yes. No, that's a really, really good point. You definitely need to be replenishing, to, having electrolytes, focusing. That's why I would say, like, I'd also want to do a stool test in conjunction because it can cause microbiome imbalances,
Yeah.
but everything can, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I wouldn't sit there. Like, I agree with you. I think a colonic could be a great thing for some people, but if you're craving one, then
Or
my
getting
question
them,
is why?
starting to do them
Yeah,
too
right.
regularly or really need
Yeah, like why in the first place? And it's kind of like, what can we do in conjunction? All of these things that feel like you're kind of saying, but our bodies should do these things naturally. We are doing so much in our life that is kind of not even our fault that makes it so we need some more of these extreme practices.
Ugh, that's such a good point.
Like
Yeah.
we're just walking by a subway and inhaling fumes. Like that's not ideal. It's okay though,
yeah.
right? We're all
Our
doing it.
ancestors weren't doing
So we
that.
need a little bit of support,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
So just the environment that our body is in, we're surrounded by endocrine disruptors. You can't walk into a building now without inhaling tons and tons of products, right? Like cleaning supplies, right? I've like unfortunately primed my husband every time we walk into a lobby. He's like, "Oh, you like the smell?" Like you can sense these things, and it's just not things that our bodies are meant to be processing day in and day out. So
Sure, yeah.
sometimes we need some of these more like quote unquote extremes. Our body can't do these things or process
because we're
them
not
all.
living like I mean, even
We're not living like in rural,
like a
and even
product.
then, you're probably exposed to pesticides
Yeah,
that are being
yeah.
thrown on all the crops, right? So in the
I mean, crops.
Yeah.
When you think about what it was like before modern society, when people were just had ecosystems and gardens and, cattle and different things on their, properties.
and family helping them raise their
Family.
children to keep their stress levels
And
low, and
all of that sort of
Yes.
thing. It's so different now, and that's what they say too about nutrient deficiency in sort of a more the agricultural age is the fact that we have fields that are just corn and fields that are just this and just that, and everything is not together and feeding off each other, and so that it's not as nutrient dense as it used to be.
yeah, and our soil's more depleted, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is so sad.
I know it is because it's hard
Yeah.
just to eat your
It's
way.
so
Yeah.
interesting.
So we sometimes need like something more extreme,
Yeah.
like a supplement, which we didn't always need, or we're not living and getting as much sun as we used to.
Right,
We're not getting
yeah.
as much vitamin D. So that's why I think these extreme things come into play unless you're literally living in these kind of societies, which almost no one
Right.
is
I
anymore.
was gonna say, like, there's no perfect world in that way where, like, you
Yeah.
know, there's no pesticides and the fragrance is endocrine disruptor free and like X, Y, and Z like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, especially being here, like there's no way,
No.
you know,
It shouldn't, and we can't expect that.
yeah,
So
right.
it's
Because
more
then
like, what can
also
we do to
doing all of
support
that sometimes then can make you go even crazy. And then like that's
Totally.
also causing stress. It's just like you really do need to pick your battles, I suppose.
Mhm.
Well, switching gears a little bit, something that has been coming up a lot in the treatment room, I've even noticed it, and I don't even do facials and everything, is histamine intolerance. And I've also seen a lot of it on social media, like more and more histamine has become a buzzy word. So, can you explain really what histamine is and what causes these kinds of intolerances?
So to put it very simply, histamine is a chemical in our body that can cause almost like an allergic reaction feeling, right? And so it's not necessarily causing this intense anaphylactic response that we think of when we talk about an allergy, but it's causing this redness, this flushing,
Mhm.
this discomfort, maybe like some, lumps and bumps. And
Mhm.
but a lot of it we think of like sweating, flushing, redness, right? And
Mhm.
it's this kind of inflammatory response.
Mhm.
And so we are 100% seeing so much more of that. Not only, I think you guys are probably seeing it in the treatment room.
Mhm.
In the treatment room, and also just noticing people are getting more and more allergies every season. Like people are on antihistamines more chronically now than ever before and with stronger symptoms. Definitely.
I know. And I don't think anyone's going to say, like, this is why this is happening. But what's interesting is that you kind of have this spectrum of our immune system. And so we have like a Th1 and a Th2, and I don't want to get too scientific here. But when that seesaw between the two sides of our immune system is out of balance, you tend to see it go in one way. And so that
Okay.
can go towards like the allergies
I
and
see.
that histamine response. And
Sure,
so
yeah.
what's tipping that seesaw? I think a lot of people have a lot of different theories,
Mhm.
right? Have we not been, did we have a period of time we weren't exposed to enough illnesses, right? Like
Oh,
that,
yeah,
right?
right.
With COVID.
Yeah.
It's because I would say I really saw a huge influx of these allergy type systems after COVID.
Interesting. Interesting.
Mhm.
And there's, I think, 1,000 reasons why, but that's a big thing that we've seen. And so what's tipping that immune response, you could say like autoimmunity is on the rise. A lot of people with autoimmunity don't always have um, as many illnesses, but they might have more autoimmune symptoms. It could go either
Okay.
way. But
Uh-huh.
point being is that I think everyone's trying to figure out like what's fully tipping that. That being said, we are seeing so much of that and so many symptoms around that. And I think our team especially is dealing with more histamine um, management than we've ever had to before. And we always dive into the gut and the nervous system for sure. Those are the two areas I think we would begin with there
Mhm.
because so many bacteria in the gut are actually histamine producers.
I see, okay.
Whenever we have histamine related issues in the treatment room or people seeing pronounced, like the rashes, the redness and the flushing,
Hives.
the hives, that sort of thing, it's always when the person's stress is through the roof.
Yeah.
That direct relationship. It's like, but when you are living it, you're not recognizing the impact. But it's so easy as a professional bird's eye point of view to kind of go, well, X, Y, this is obvious why this is happening
Yes.
right now. But it always comes back to that.
Always.
Stress and balance. Something
Again,
that's hugely
title
out of
of
balance.
today's
Yeah.
episode.
Balance.
Diving deeper, stress and balance. Like literally those three things. So what are some histamine rich foods that people might want to, be wary of, especially if they already have like high histamine levels, like just from their environment?
Yeah, I'd say there's a huge, huge list. And if anybody is listening to this podcast and is like, hey, I want a histamine guide, message me because I can send you a full guide of things to eat and
Link
things
in
to
bio.
avoid.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, no, because we can, you can focus on, there's a certain enzyme that certain foods in our body produces called DAO, which helps actually reduce histamine. But I think of aged, cured things. So think of wine, think of cheese, think of cured meats. Bone broth is actually a big one that people tend to try to really stock up on, but it's high in histamine.
Ooh,
and sometimes even like
no.
you're the
collagen.
one that's always saying bone broth.
I love bone broth.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have
Yeah,
it. It's just
yeah.
if for clients who are really
Yeah.
sensitive. Also, another big thing, this one's always really heartbreaking, is if you're really sensitive, leftovers. Which is why we
Oh.
hear a lot of people being like, but I ate, pasta with bolognese sauce yesterday and I was fine. But then I ate it a few days later and
Oh,
it,
wow.
had been in their fridge.
yeah.
And that can cause an issue too.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting.
Yeah. But we still, we encourage meal prepping. So it very much depends on the person.
Yeah, totally. As again, another key theme depends on the person.
Yeah. But there's a whole nother list we can, dive a little
Yeah.
deeper.
Yeah. Well, your information will be in the show notes, so anybody can just reach out, of course, if they need your help. So something that I do want to get into a little bit is, especially you being a registered dietitian, is the topic of Ozempic and GLP-1s and everything. And I know it's buzzy and I really don't know much about it, but I would
Yeah.
just be really curious, especially like in your professional opinion, like the effects that you're seeing, either good or bad, in your practice, and especially when it comes to skin health, like what your recommendation or I guess philosophy would be.
This is a really hot and interesting topic right now.
It is.
And I think that GLP-1s are incredible for the people that need them. What we're seeing,
Key word, key sentence, the people
People
that
that
need
need
them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
because it really focuses on blood sugar balance. So the things we hear from clients that are on GLP-1s who need them are, I see, there's a lot less reduced food noise.
Mhm.
But then let's say they do, their injection on Sunday night, Saturday night, Sunday morning, that food noise is starting to come
Mhm.
back,
Mm.
which is a little bit of a red flag to me because you're relying on, this drug to do that. When
Yeah.
we can do that naturally, like we really can
Yeah.
mimic, there are so many foods and even probiotics, right, that have GLP-1 activating effects.
Sure.
That being said, the reason that it's the concern I have for individuals, whether they need them or not, is that we're seeing a reduction of lean muscle mass. So
Mhm.
protein is really important because I think when individuals go on GLP-1s, a lot of them are not working with someone informed in terms of what they should be eating. And so they're just noticing, okay, I'm like a lot less hungry. I'm like
Yeah.
craving a lot less of the foods that I would usually crave. So I'm just gonna eat whatever I want because it's such a small amount. And,
Mhm.
they're not focused on making sure they're still meeting like their protein needs and et cetera, right?
Mhm.
The other thing we're seeing is some nutrients being depleted just simply from just not eating enough or not eating a variety of
Mhm.
foods.
Yeah.
And then the third thing we're seeing is slowed digestion. And then, of
Okay.
course, there's these like rare side effects that you could get with any drug. And that's, I know something that's a little more buzzy. But again, those are things that you just take
Right.
the risk of potentially
Yeah.
having. And, that's something you weigh with your doctor. But the slowed digestion component is definitely a concerning thing. So going back to those three things.
When you say slow digestion, what do you mean by that?
Constipation, digestive issues, pain,
Okay.
right? Like just think of everything like slowing down.
Yeah.
And so with that, the acne connection there, and it's not like we're seeing enough people and then enough, like it's still going to take time to see all of this.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
the things that we are seeing if you have slow digestion is that those things back up, and then you might see some of that on the face.
Yeah.
With acne or
Mhm.
skin
I
issues
mean,
in
your
general.
skin is like
Loss
the last
of
one to come.
volume.
So
Loss of volume.
Yes,
is
right.
with the
strongest
yes,
like
thing.
that.
with the loss of lean muscle mass for
Right.
sure.
Mhm.
That's the Ozempic face. And then the nutrient status, right? If you're not getting
Yeah.
enough omega-3s or you're not absorbing enough of the nutrients you're consuming or you're not
Mhm.
eating enough of those, then
Right.
obviously there's the direct impact
Yeah.
potentially. The benefit of that is that it's tremendous for balancing blood sugar for those, right? It was a
Oh,
diabetes
okay.
drug. So you can see a lot of potential upside
Yeah,
there,
okay,
right?
'cause
So that's where it's like so personal.
I know. Okay.
Again,
It's so funny.
and
'cause-
anybody who's like so anti them or so pro them, you have to really look at the individual.
Yeah,
and what they
that's so
need.
funny. My next question was literally going to be, does it counteract blood sugar management? Because that's a huge impact on acne and on skin. But you just said that it actually helps and supports blood sugar
Right, there's
management.
pros and cons for
Oh my
sure.
gosh, that's so
But it's
interesting.
not going
Okay.
to solve a blood sugar issue in somebody who is just like not eating well and
Yeah.
doesn't even need it, right? It's more for somebody who blood sugar management really needs to be taken to the next level.
Oh, okay.
I've seen it do some wonderful things for clients that really need it.
Yes,
Mhm.
I agree.
And use it in a managed way, and it does have a profound impact on their skin too. But I think it's key what you said, there's too much of a good thing. I think there's too many people that are using it that shouldn't. It's
Mhm.
probably getting abused. I mean, you're starting to see it come through now more and more, images on social media where I, as a mother of a young child that is a female, like I'm nervous about what is being considered normal
Mhm.
now,
Mhm.
Totally.
and I'm getting a little bit of trauma from the heroin chic age of when I was growing up. It's
I'm
like it's
sure
coming
that
back
it's, oh my
again.
gosh, it is
Yes.
back and in full
Yes.
force.
I
And I
Full
see it a lot, just like
force.
in my, I think it's really popular in my age group too. So now I'm kind of like living that heroin chic, but in like my
Yeah,
generation. It's
I
so
can see it.
interesting. Yeah. Well, I just want to end on this question that I got from our audience of if gut hormonal health and liver health are not the issue, what else do you investigate in your practice?
That's a great question. So, some of the other things we might consider, and a lot of these link into those,
Mhm.
would be histamine issues, would
Uh-huh.
be autoimmune conditions,
Uh-huh.
would be mold,
Ah, yes.
and those more environmental factors.
Sure.
Obviously, food intolerances, which ties back into gut health because if
Mhm.
you're not tolerating certain foods, right,
Mhm.
that are causing inflammation, often that's tied back to GI health. Um, and then nervous system regulation, which we talked
Yeah.
about, a lot of the stress component,
Yeah.
which falls back into the hormones.
I was
But
just gonna say it does kind of like link back to that, even if you like don't see it right away. Like there are some, intricacies between honestly all three.
Yeah.
yeah,
It sounds like I feel like
the
every time
last
I
thing
have a
is
conversation,
nutrient
totally.
imbalances,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
that's where like Accutane is high dose vitamin A,
Mhm.
right? And so, that's a whole nother conversation, but just sometimes people just need some like vitamin A and zinc and some omega-3s, and
Yeah.
that's a big player here too.
Right.
It's so funny because it's a direct parallel with skincare. Whenever we're
Yes.
looking at skincare, it's like some people need more DHT inhibitors and 5A reductase to calm that hormonal. Some people need more nutrients. They need more antioxidants. Other people need the hydration to come through. Everybody has the same skin condition,
Mhm.
but there's different levels of all of the different parts. And then it all does sort of it works in synergy together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's beautiful. It's just one
Crazy.
big puzzle.
Mhm.
And everything's all connected.
Yeah. That you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
Wow, well, Diana, thank you so much. I even have been like, whoa, that's such a great point. Like all episodes. So really, I feel like every time I walk away from talking to you, I feel so empowered with all of this knowledge. So I know our listeners will feel the same. Thank you so much for being on again. Of course, I mean, now I'm like, we have to do a part 3. Like there's so many other things that we can get into, I suppose. But where can everybody find you and work with you and your team?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you guys so much for
Of
having me. I love
course.
being here. So if you can reach out to us at dianaorchantnutrition.com, lots of different avenues there, or via our Instagram at do.nutrition.
Oh, yay. Well, amazing. Well, thank you, Nick, as well, for all of your insight. Thank you, listeners, for your continued support of the Skin Talk Tuesday podcast. If you, of course, have any questions, please shoot us a DM and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.